Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description and every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 4, Episode 7 of HBO's Succession, entitled Tailgate Party. This episode title is named after the party that takes place in this episode. It's not a tailgate, but it's a pre-election party that Logan has done regularly, and that he already has planned out for this year, which is why Lucas is on the invite list. You know, if the invite list was made recently, he probably would have been on it, but that's how Lucas was ultimately invited and why he was able to show up at this party. So I feel like this episode was a lot like episode 6 in that it was a good slash solid episode, but not one that really knocked my socks off like I've kind of become accustomed to Succession doing lately. I'd even go so far as to say that an argument could be made that Yellow Jackets won the week, which has not been the case yet so far this season, but this year I should say. However, this episode did feature a scene that I've been waiting for since last season, and that scene was everything I expected and hoped that it would be. And I think this episode did a lot to get the pieces in place for these final 3 episodes. So I'm going to break this one down with just the 2 groups that really need to be talked about here, which is the Kendall and Roman group, and then the Shiv Tom group. And then I'm going to get into thoughts, and that's it. So I would imagine this isn't going to be a terribly long video, not my usual 30-minute Succession deep dive. So let's see. Let's start with Kendall and Roman. Kendall opens the episode meeting with Rava and learns that his daughter is scared to go to school because of ATN and thus her father's affiliation with Mencken. Kendall makes a decision that any scumbag would make and cowardly makes a limp-dicked attempt at blaming Rava for not being present enough, as if Kendall is a even remotely kind of sort of somewhat present father. What a fucking lowlife move this was for this piece of shit Kendall. He then says everything he does is for them, which in a show replete with lies might be the biggest lie that's been told on the show to date. We can all agree that every decision that Kendall has ever made has been only for the benefit of Kendall Roy and for no one else. But all the kids meet, and Kendall and Roman ask Shiv to have Nate come to the tailgate party because they want to set up essentially a plan B for in case the inflate Waystar's value via Living Plus plan. In case that plan doesn't work, they want to have this plan B in place. Now, of course, the show doesn't mention this because this is not that kind of show, but let me do you guys a solid and let's refresh our memories on just who Nate is. So, Nate's a political strategist. He used to work for Gil. If you guys should remember Gil. He was kind of like, you know how everybody on this show is kind of modeled, not everybody, but most of the big players are kind of modeled after real life people. This Gil was kind of like the show's Bernie Sanders. He was, I think he was a senator. He was running for president on the Democratic end, and Nate was working for him as a political strategist. This, of course, put him at odds with Shiv because Shiv and the Roy family was Republican. But also, as we also know, Nate and Shiv were able to put their political differences aside to put some other differences together. But Nate now works for Daniel Jimenez, who is now the Democratic candidate for president. He's of course running up against Jared Macon, who's a Republican candidate. Now, Kendall and Roman want Shiv to invite her old fuck buddy to the tailgate party because they want him to put a bug in Jimenez's ear about looking into regulation issues as it pertains to the Gojo deal. So at the party, Kendall basically tells Nate that ATN will give Jimenez good press coverage if he does this. You know, kind of like basically fucks the Gojo deal by overregulation type shit. And that felt very shady and illegal at the time. I'm pretty sure we would call that a bribe. Like, I don't know how things work in the political arena. I feel like the rules are a lot looser, but that very much sounded like a bribe to me. And it hits home that it, at best, is unethical. When Nate says that he's uncomfortable with the conversation. And then he says, like, I'm not Gil and you're not Logan, and that's probably a good thing. And I think that's, like, you know, that tells us right there, if it wasn't already clear that Kendall was doing some really underhanded snake shit, that was our clue that Kendall's doing some really underhanded snake shit. So Shiv, who is working for Matsson, I have not moved on to the Shiv person yet, who is working for Matsson as like a mole within the Roy organization, turns right around and tells them about Kendall and Roman's plan and implores him to come to the party to essentially kind of like defend himself, or at the very least put a good impression out there for people who might be buying into a lot of the rumors that exist about him, and that could potentially be coming out about him. Lucas does come to the party, and then he actually feeds into the perception that he's unstable. He's really weird with Ebba while he's there. He publicly embarrasses her, talking about how he wishes he could fire her. And then Kendall and Roman, back to them. Yeah, I told you, I wasn't leaving Kendall and Roman yet. Ultimately, they approach her after she leaves, after Lucas embarrasses her. They approach her and ultimately find out that Lucas's subscriber numbers in India are wildly inflated. So much so that Lucas says the numbers will make sense if there were 2 Indias. Now, just to put that in perspective for those of you who may not be geographically inclined, as most Americans aren't, as we tend to not give a fuck about anything that happens outside of our country, India has the largest population in the world. So him saying that the numbers will make sense if there were 2 Indias really just lets you know just how bad those numbers are, how badly inflated they are. And Kendall understands, and Roman as well, that this information is enough to make the board back out of the deal. So the episode ends with Kendall kind of laying out a new plan for Frank, that they buy Gojo. It's an audacious plan that would be something that even Logan hadn't achieved, so it's right up Kendall's alley to want to do it. With Kendall's current status as CEO, he'd be more powerful than his father ever was, having now brought in Gojo into their empire as well. And they don't say it in the episode, but I mean, you got to factor Pierce into that too, right? And then also remember how I said after episode 5 that it was way too early for things to look this good for Shiv? Well, now here we are with 3 episodes left of the series, and she's betrayed her brothers, who admittedly, obviously, they also betrayed her, in order to align herself with Lucas, who's now looking like a pretty bad fucking choice and a worse choice day by day. Meanwhile, her brother is positioning himself to become more powerful than their father ever was, and she's still got a secret baby that she was just told that she's unfit to be a mother for during a devastating conversation with her husband. So now is a good time for us to talk about Shiv. So we open the episode with Tom and Shiv. They appear to have patched up their issues. He's bringing her breakfast in bed. She's sending him texts about breaking his dick. Nice, healthy marriage, all that good stuff. I would love to get a text about, did I break your dick? Even if you did, what a great way for it to go, right? But Tom gives Shiv a gift with breakfast, which is a scorpion encased in glass. And I want to spend some time here because I think this scene is kind of telling us a lot. So for starters, Tom makes this sound like a lighthearted and playful gift, but as he explains it with, he makes it sound very casual. I kill you, you kill me, no, it's the thing we do. You come to understand that citing all the pain you've caused one another at this time, in this juncture in your lives and in your relationships, and via a gift wasn't exactly the kindest gesture from Tom. Then let's talk about the scorpion itself. So this is likely a reference to the fable about the scorpion and the frog, which if you guys haven't heard about it, I'm about to tell you what it was. But it kind of speaks to how Tom views Shiv and why a scorpion was chosen when you could really give. There's a lot of gifts that Tom could have encased in glass, or that the writers could have encased in glass for Tom, that would deliver the same message of I kill you, you kill me, you know, we're both dangerous, and fuck it. I don't know why you got to do like an Italian, I kill you, you kill me. It sounds like a Robert De Niro thing, but a lot of animals you could have encased in glass to get that point across. But a scorpion specifically seems to cite this fable. So in the fable, a scorpion asks a frog, like, hey, can I hop on your back? Can you can take me across this river because I can't swim, so I could really use a ride? And the frog is like, I peeped that you're a scorpion, so I just want to be clear. You're not gonna sting me and kill me, right? And the scorpion is like, bruh, if I sting you, then we both gonna die because you gonna die from the sting and I'm gonna drown. Why the fuck would I do that? So the frog's like, all right, well, that makes sense. So, all right, hop on my back, we'll go ahead. They get halfway across, the scorpion stings the frog. The frog's like, what the fuck? And the scorpion's just like, it's in my nature, sorry, and they both die. So the general lesson here is that some folks can't stop themselves from hurting others, even if it's in their best interest not to. And I'm not gonna get into one of my rants that you could find in another place where I put content, but I talk about this a lot. People's tendencies to cut their nose off to spite their face, and that's not exactly what's happening here, but the idea that there are some people who just can't stop themselves from hurting others, even when it's in their own detriment, it's a real thing. But like I said, it speaks to how Tom views Shiv. But by giving Shiv this gift, is that not what Tom is also doing? Hurting someone else when it's not in his best interest to do it? Shiv holds his precious career, which he told us how precious it was, in her hands. Probably not the best time to give her a questionable gift. But Tom's a scorpion too. Tom has burned every bridge. No one likes him. And the one guy he burned all the bridges to suck up to is dead. He had everything smooth with one of the few people who could save his job, his wife. And he fucked that up because he couldn't just give her a normal fucking gift. Or no gift at all. You already brought her fucking breakfast in bed. Y'all fucking all the time. You don't have to bring a gift. He shot himself in the foot. You didn't have to give a gift. It didn't have to be a fucking scorpion. You could have gave her a goddamn necklace like everybody else would. So Tom's a scorpion too. And I think a big takeaway here is that no matter whose side you may be on, if you've chosen a side or not, the two of them are pretty much the same person at this point and are stuck in a cycle of hurting one another. They just express the same negative attributes in different ways. So Shiv later pitches herself for a big role once Mattson buys the company, but he's a little skittish about it. And once she learns about the India shit, and you add that to all his personality shit, she's starting to be worried that she might have backed the wrong horse. And then you add that concern to her secret pregnancy and her unresolved / buried issues with Tom, and that's how you end up with the epic balcony scene that I've been calling for since last season. You know, I've been saying the whole time, like, at some point, them two are gonna have it out. It's gonna be epic. It finally happened. Goddamn, probably a whole ass season after I said it needed to happen, but it did finally happen. You all saw it. I don't need to go over what was said, but I can cover it by simply saying that everything was said. It was all put out there on the table. I don't think there was a single issue between the two of them that wasn't brought up in this fight. The biggest violation is and always has been Shiv's willingness to have Tom go to jail. And I'm glad that was brought up because, the wild thing about this conversation is that everything one person said about the other was true. Even when they kind of conflict with one another, they spend so much time bullshitting and not outwardly saying the reality. Like I talk about in this show all the time, what people are actually thinking is never what they're actually saying. They're always saying something different. They're always saying the thing that it's always a play. It's always a move, right? And these two are always constantly bullshitting one another. And even though they might say things in this argument that might conflict, everyone's right because everyone is just so full of shit that, like, when you boil down to who they really are and their real motives, you can see how aligned they are and how similar they are. So let's take the jail thing. Shiv says he volunteered to go to jail. True, right? But there was also a moment, I don't remember it verbatim or anything like that, where it was like she could have either suggested someone else or going in a different direction, and she either chose not to move in a different direction or threw Tom under the bus. I can't remember which, but I feel like it was something like she could have, she had an opportunity to basically thumbs down the Tom going to jail idea, and I think she didn't thumb it down, which is still, like, it doesn't have to be, I approve of Tom going to jail to be that. Like, by not saying anything, it was still this. I feel like that's what it was. But either way, she had a chance to show that she didn't want him to go to jail, and she showed that she was fine with it. Even if she may not have been, because her career trajectory was the only thing that mattered to her. But I don't know. She says that she was fine with it. So looks like we're gonna get probably the election episode next week. Looking forward to that one. This should tie into one of my thoughts, so we're gonna move on to those. And then, like I said, after that we'll wrap up. So first thought, I really think they're up to something with Greg, and I just can't place what it is or why I feel so certain that they're up to something. Because I feel like they're only giving me breadcrumbs. Like, he keeps having these moments that just don't quite feel like the Greg we've seen to this point. These like small moments of like cutthroat or devious or sneaky behavior. You know, I've talked about these weird moments he's had with people, like the weird thing, like how he's like, oh, I'll talk to you later, Marsha. Like how it seems like he's just getting in people's ears. And I talked about with like Shiv and Tom last week or the week before. And then this week, we have him firing all these people over Zoom and then building up his willingness to fire people to Lucas. Like, just the fact that he was even willing to go over there and just kind of like put himself out there in front of Lucas. I don't know. I'm not saying that they have something planned for Greg. I just feel like they do. I don't know what it is. And then lastly, I truly have no idea where they're going with Connor this season, but I feel like his presidential run is going to have a big role to play. So with potentially the election episode being next week, all of what's been happening with Connor and Willa could come to a head next week. But like, they just don't have a lot for him to do week to week. Like, I feel like if I were to cite one flaw with this season, it would be Connor, in that Connor hasn't had very much to do it all. And then when we see him, I feel like we make very, very little progress toward a place that I can't even guess where we're going, because he's not even performing well in the polls. So I can't even look at it like, oh, is Connor going to pull off an upset and win the presidency? That would be interesting. Like, no, a motherfucker polling at 1% is not about to pull the upset. So it's like, I don't know where they're going with this, and they're only giving us a little bit each week. So I kind of feel like the Connor shit, whether or not the Connor storyline or story arc is going to be looked at as a flaw or not is going to rely heavily on how it ends. And I think that's going to happen with the election. I think the election is going to be next week, so I guess we'll find out if we're going to be satisfied with Connor's run on this show. I will see you guys next week for episode 8, and until then, peace.